Medieval music used many plucked string instruments like the lute, the mandolin, the guitar, psaltery. The dulcimers, similar in structure to the psaltery and zither, were originally plucked, but then became struck in the 14th century after the arrival of new technology that made metal strings possible. Medieval music consists of a single line without accompaniment. Medieval music is very repetitive in rhythm, since it only has a single musical line. During the medieval period, the foundation was laid down for music theory. The theoretical advances were particularly made to rhythm. The earliest medieval music did not have any kind of notational system. The Renaissance followed from the medieval period and was for musicians an era of discovery, innovation, and exploration. The name actually means rebirth. Music was dominated by the church at this time, and most compositions were for sacred use. Since this era was an era of innovation and exploration, the printing press was invented. This now meant that music could be published and distributed for the first time. Most music writing during this period was intended to be sung either as large choral pieces in church or as songs. What differentiates the Renaissance from the medieval periods is that the texture is richer. It has 4 or more parts of music. The music blends rather than contrasting. There is a greater harmony and there is a flow and progression of chords. The main instruments used in the Baroque era were string instruments and keyboard instruments. In string instruments, they used the family of viola da gamba. They were gradually replaced by the violin family, as the favorite of composers and performers. For ensemble instrumentation, the Baroque orchestra consisted primarily of strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion were only added for special effect. Voicings also changed in this era. There was something called the rule of down bow, which meant that nearly all stronger beats are matched with the down bow. This also required a lot of retakes with the bow, with the exception of long chains of eighths and 2/16ths at faster tempos. The rhythm became faster and more complex. There was a continuous rhythmic drive. Notes were grouped together with bar lines, and time signatures were standardized. Dynamics, mostly left to the discretion of the performer, abrupt shifts from loud to soft achieved by adding or subtracting many instruments. The classical period of music had many stringed instruments. The violin family became firmly established as the preferred bowed string instrument of the day. For keyboard instruments, the transition to secular music reduces the role of the organ. The harpsichord is gradually replaced by the modern piano. The melody in the classical period is short and clearly defined with musical phrases. They are usually in 2, 4, or 8 measures in length in a contrasting question and answer format. The classical period's harmony has a basic harmonic progression and is extended to key relationships and structural functions. The chromatism is not as common as in the Baroque. It emphasizes placed on development of beauty, crafted melody with accompaniment. The rhythm is very defined and regular. The bassline loses its leadership unlike the Baroque. The dynamics, they are traced and introduced. The general characteristics of the Romantic period was the melody. The melodic themes are varying in length, often fragmented. There were extreme dynamic changes, and large leaps of pitch and/or use of chromatics for increase of harmonic tension. The rhythm of the Romantic period got more and more complex. It often varied by changing the number of beats in a measure, cross rhythms, and syncopation. Tempo often fluctuated with the use of rubato, accelerato, and retard. The texture of the Romantic period was that all parts are important. The melody often switches between voices, and beautiful lines are created for each part. The melody is the strongest element, but all parts are equally important. The dynamics for the Romantic period explicitly noted by the composer, meaning that you had to follow what the composer did. It could range from extreme pianissimo to forward fortissimo. The overall characteristic of the Romantic period is that it is dramatic, expressive, and emotional. Tone color via instrumentation developed as a primary compositional element. Tonality and dynamics were pushed to the extremes.